Hi, I'm David Harry, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to download, install and basically use the LoudMax plugin, which in my opinion is the very best free VST limiter plugin. Okay, so the point of this video then is to show you how to download, install and basically use the LoudMax plugin. Now what I'm going to be doing here is running through a step-by-step guide on how to do all of that and also give a practical example of it being used in a program that I'm going to use it in. Now it's worth mentioning at this point, the program that I'm going to be using is called Edius by Grass Valley, which is an NLE. But this plugin can be used on most nearly anything that's VST compatible, whether that be an NLE or a DAW system. It's also usable on other platforms and other plugin architecture as well. But like I say, for this particular example of the plugin, I will be strictly using it on PC as a VST plugin. But the process of installation and such will be fairly much exactly the same for any other use of this plugin. So hopefully, once I get into the actual use of the plugin, it should be helpful for a lot of other people as well. And just a quick note on the plugin and its use. If you're thinking about using this on a daily basis, then please consider to leave a donation on the website for the people who make this plugin, because it's a fantastic plugin and I'll guarantee you once you start using it, you won't want to use anything else to do a similar job. So like I say, please consider leaving a donation on the site for the people who create this plugin. Also, I'm going to try and pace myself a little slower with this video and not be my usual animated mad self. Reason for that is dead simple. Hopefully this tutorial will get picked up by many different people, and hopefully a lot of people whose native language isn't English. So hopefully again you'll be able to understand my diction and be able to follow the tutorial properly, and also be able to appreciate all the nuances of my accent, which is Scouse, because I'm from Liverpool in England. And also as well, hopefully this tutorial is going to be really good for all my extended family of Edius brothers and sisters out there. So hopefully this will help you be able to control your dialogue or any other sound that you're using within your Edius timeline as well. So the first thing that we need to do is to go and get the plugin file itself. So open up a web browser. Now do not worry about having to write down this URL. I will have a link to this in the descriptions below, which will take you straight to this section of the site to download the file. Now as we can see here, under downloads, there are a few variations of this plugin. Now they're going to be for different OSs like Windows and PC, and also for different plugin architectures as well. But because this is specifically to do with VST on the PC, that's what I'm going to be downloading. Now you can still actually download these for whatever one that you're using. Doesn't have to be specifically for what I'm going to be using it on, but the rest of my guide should still help you because it's dealing more with the functionality of the plugin itself rather than the platform and the host. Okay, so what I'm going to do is download VST plugin version 1.23 for Windows PC, and this contains the 32 and the 64-bit version of this plugin. So I'm going to click on that. Now this is going to take us to mediafire.com. Now if you've never come across mediafire.com before, do not worry about it. It's a proper legitimate file sharing site. And then up here we've got download. Now if you click on that, it's going to then proceed to do the download to wherever your downloads folder is. But what I'm going to do here, just so I can keep this a bit simpler and just work from my desktop, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to do save link as. And then this is going to go to my desktop. But like I say, wherever this downloads to on your system, whether that's a pre-assigned downloads folder, a dedicated place where you're telling it to go, or somewhere else where you've moved your downloads folder to, just go there once it's downloaded to get hold of the file. So I'm going to hit save. Now the file is only about 0.5 MB in size, so it'll download really quickly. So now what I'm going to do is go to my downloads location, which in this instance is my desktop, and there is the zip file for the plugin. So the next thing to do is to unpack the zip file. So I'm going to extract it to the desktop. Okay, and then within inside that folder I have two versions of the plugins DLL. The first one is presumably for 32-bit because the second one says 64. So what I'm going to do now is copy the 64-bit version to my VST plugin folder. Now at this point, it just has to be noted that wherever your VST folder is, this is where you put the plugin. Now also, you may have the option within whatever program you're using to point it anywhere to pick up like the DLLs and the plugins for your VST plugins. But whichever way that applies to you, just make sure that you put that DLL file in the appropriate folder for your system. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to simply drag it and drop it into a folder that I have here called VST plugin folder. Okay, so at this point, we've basically downloaded the file, we've unpacked it, and then we've moved the plugin to the right location where we need to access it from within inside the programs that we're going to use. So for just this short section here, I'm just going to run through it on Edius on my system. Now, just kind of watch this bit through because it will start then showing how to utilize the plugin properly. So anyway, for anybody on Edius, this is probably going to be like, a bit of a help for them because I'm going to show you how to set it up on Edius as well. But like I've just said, regardless of the host program, I will be showing how to use the plugin as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I already have a project in Edius that I've already set up specifically to do this demonstration or this tutorial. So I'm just going to launch the project file. Now, although I've already had this on my system before, I've kind of like took it all out and whatnot. And the reason for that is because I now want to be able to show this working properly for Edius users to show how to install the program correctly. So what we'll do, we go up to settings, click on settings, go to system settings. And then what we'll do in system settings, we then go to effects. Then at the bottom we have VST plugin bridge. So we'll click on that. Now let me just get this into the center of the screen. So once we've clicked on VST plugin bridge, we then have the ability to add locations where VST plugins are stored. So I'm going to hit add. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go straight to the desktop. And then from this point, I'm going to click into VST or click on VST plugin folder. I'll do select folder. Now what I'm going to do is apply that. Actually, before I apply it, you can see here, it's added this line as the location to where Edius needs to go and look for VST plugins. I mean, this could be anywhere, or it could indeed be on a dedicated VST plugin in the root of your C drive if you're using other VST programs, which is where they may be putting it. But regardless, you just point Edius at that location where you stored the plugin. So I'm going to hit apply. Actually, one last thing here before I do that. To apply changes, you need to restart Edius. So I'm going to hit apply and then hit OK. Then what I'm going to do is exit Edius. So I'm just going to relaunch this project again. And so now what I'm going to do is go to the effects tab, and in my effects list here, in fact I'll start from the top. So as we come down, we have audio filters. So if we scroll down through audio filters, at the end there's another folder that says effects, and in there is the LoudMax 64. So that's just to show us that we have successfully installed the plugin into Edius. So now what I'm going to do is kind of just get on with like showing you how I use this plugin and explain a little bit about it as well. So what it is, as if by magic, I have a piece of media already in the bin, which I'm going to use to demonstrate the plugin with. Now, What I'm going to do, I'll try and get through this as quick as possible, because the chances are that whether you're an Edius user or you're looking at this and you use something else as a host, you're probably going to understand most of this anyway, so I won't labour the point on this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is duplicate that media 2 more times. So there's the first copy and then there's the second copy. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the second one onto a different track for its audio. And the reason why this is because I'm going to show you 3 different stages of like gain processing for this same piece of audio or this same clip. So here's the first one here, the E1 owners. Because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input on the side is okay. Now as we can see there, that's kind of peaking somewhere below -6, which is probably, you know, that's an okay place for dialogue to be peaking, because it gives us a bit of dynamic range. Now the other thing I'm going to just explain quickly here, as I'm recording this right now, I'm on a screen capturing device. And what it is, I've had to lower down this audio so it doesn't interfere too much with my kind of overlaid audio that I'm doing, or my live narration. So this is going to sound a little quieter than what it really is. But when I get to the end to show the actual real outputs, they will be properly at the levels that they should be. So don't worry about if this sounds maybe a bit too low, and most certainly don't be hiring up your playback speakers either. So like I say, this version here, that is the original, and as we can see, it's okay. It's got a fair bit of headroom in it, which will help us to kind of do other things with it. Now, the second one here, as we can hear and see, it's exactly the same as the first. E1 owner, you'll know that it's peaking in the same places and whatnot. Now, usually what you might want to do here is just simply raise the level. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put the track into track mode. Let me just raise the level a few dB. Let me have a look here. So this looks like it might be a peak. So I'm going to just test this for peaks. Because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input... Okay, now that seems fine to me. What it is, although you kind of like, you can go over 0, what it is, this scale here will not show clipping at 0. So what you'll find is on a lot of playback systems, they actually have like, you know, well, putting it bluntly, they have a safe area. But if this were to the rule of 0, it would be clipping hitting 0. So as a rule of thumb, I just won't exceed 0 anyway. Now what I'm going to do here is just give a quick example of this one here, which is the original, and then the regained one, which is using the fader. Amplify dynamic microphones to any great degree, and it will not power these. And then here is the regained one. So unfortunately, what it won't do is pre-amplify dynamic microphones to... So as you can hear there, we've actually gained it up, and you know, it's a bit louder, and we're kind of utilizing the maximum headroom that we have as well for our playback. But let's just say, well, you know, we want it to sound even louder again, or more to the point, we want it to sound more like a finished thing. So what we're going to do now is start using this plugin. So what I'm going to go do is go here to the third example, and I'm going to apply the plugin to it. So there we go. So now if we click on the audio section of that clip and have a look in information, there is the audio plugin. So what I'm going to do is just double click it to open it up. Now I'll try and quickly just go over this as well. So basically it's probably the simplest and easiest tool to use for limiting. Now what it does, it literally only does 2 things. You've got a threshold control here, and then what you have here is a kind of peak control as well. Now in a very brief description, what happens is your threshold will determine at which level the limiting starts happening, and then this slider here will determine where it peaks to on playback. So what I'm going to do here is set it to -0.1. So I'm just going to use the mouse to do that. So there we go, -0.1. Now what this means is that no matter what we do with the threshold level here, that sound will never exceed 0.0 or -0.1, and that's important because we definitely know that we cannot clip the audio output then. we can most certainly drive it into, like, you know, internal distortion if it were loud enough to start off in the first place. But regardless of whatever we do, and like we might destroy the audio within itself, we definitely will not be clipping it on the output, which is really important. Now, another thing to note here with this threshold control, it's actually doing a lot more than just threshold, because what this is doing, it's also got like auto release functions built into it. And also, and very importantly for this particular use, it also does an automatic resumming and gain staging as well. So what I'm going to do now is just apply, I'm going to go straight for -9, right? So what we're effectively doing here is gain reduction with automatic resumming and guaranteeing that it will not clip. So what I'll do, let me just play the file back a bit. So this particular microphone system for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners. Okay, now if we just quickly go back here, and this was the one where we gained it up so that it was peaking just below 0, and it did sound like it was healthy. Dynamic microphones to any great degree, and as we can hear, that now sounds a lot lower. And the limited and regained version microphone system for the E1 may be very interesting to that sounds much louder. Now I'll kind of mess about a little bit more with that level as well. Let's just see what we can and we can't do with it. But right now at this point, I would say that the amount of dynamics processing that's being applied to that version there is very safe. And by that, what I mean is it's really easy to use far too much dynamics processing and basically overcook your sound. Whether that's dialogue or any other kind of sound source, it's easy to overcook them. So in this instance, I think that's a pretty good balance of being able to get the level up and make it sound a little bit more punchier, if that's the way to describe it, but without making it sound over processed. So just quickly, I'll just give a snippet here. It is not a microphone input, it's a line input. So unfortunately, that's the original recording. Here is the manually regained to 0 recording. One owner, you'll know that this input on the side is not a microphone input. And then this is obviously the limiter and regained version. Very interesting to other E1 owners, because as okay, now let me just do a couple of things here just to show that we can actually, you know, wreck the audio if we want to. Right, I'm going to throw this all the way up to -30. So even before this plays back, there's only so much of a point where it'll get louder to, because what it's going to start doing is like introducing like higher levels of background noises and such and whatnot. Now, although this isn't necessarily a compressor, the net result can be a bit similar if you start overcooking things. So let me just give you a quick example of that. And for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners, because as an E1 owner, actually I'm very surprised at that. That's a huge amount of gain reduction. That's a ridiculous amount of gain reduction there. And to be honest, I'm very surprised. I thought that would have been showing some really nasty side effects. Now if you listen carefully, you can hear more of the background in the sound. But very surprisingly, that's not smashing the dialogue to bits here. System for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners, because as an E1 owner, you'll know. Okay, now I'm very surprised at that, to be honest. That's actually really shocked me. What I will say straight away, this plugin seems to be extremely good at trying to be transparent. Now don't get me wrong. If the original level of that particular audio was louder than what it was, then applying this amount of gain reduction and then resumming it would absolutely destroy it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to back it down. Let's see what it sounds like at about -15 dB. Be interesting to other E1 owners, because as an yeah, I mean, that still sounds okay. Like I was saying before, there's only so far you'll go, and you won't actually get any more like gain effect out of it. But what you will start doing is effectively doing similar to what a compressor would do as well, and then you'll start bringing in, like, you know, unwanted side effects. Anyway, I think just around -9 on that is about right for the E1. May be very interesting to other E1 owners. Okay, so I'm very happy with that result there. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, I'm going to play this through, and I'll do it in its entirety just so that we can get to hear each of them take stuff, you know, and as they follow each other. But what I will do, in fact, actually, before I do that, let me just explain one other thing here. When you're doing all these settings here, the most important one for the output is this one here. So where I've set to 0 minus 0.1. Now, if I were to raise the track level louder, if I put that up to plus 12, for instance, that minus 0.1 is relative to the track as it started or its original gain. Now the problem is, if I start moving that fader up and down there, it will increase the output on that track and it will go into clipping. So I'll do that quickly. I won't do it for too long because I'm going to imagine it won't be very pleasant. Because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input on the side. Okay, so as we could clearly hear there, it definitely drove it into the clipping and distortion. So just be careful. This here, this output is relative to the track that the audio's on. So any subsequent manual gaining or gain staging anywhere in the chain after that point is definitely going to make it clip and distort. Now this will also apply to your master output. So I'll change that as well. So again, I'll just play a bit through. I won't do too much because it will be very unpleasant, I would imagine. Phone system for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1. Okay, and as you could see there, because it was already predetermined that it shouldn't exceed a certain point, it didn't stop it from distorting on the master output either. So in any event, this setting here is all relevant to the actual start off point of 0 on the track input itself, which will also translate to the output. Now let me just get this back to 0 for the output, make sure that's okay. Alright, so hopefully anyway, what I've just explained there wasn't too boring, but these are things you really do have to bear in mind when you're dealing with gain staging or basically altering the dynamics of anything in any way whatsoever. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to play this through. Let me just okay that. I'm going to play this through, but just bear in mind that what I'm going to have done here is actually kind of recorded it properly with inside Edius as a hard render, because right now what it is, as I'm doing all this, it's simply going through the HDMI output off my computer and being recorded into an external recorder. And because for the sake of my dialogue not getting wiped out by the timeline for my VO, on the output here I've set it to 50. So what I'm going to do is just play it through, but I will be rematching it to a proper rendered version. So when you hear this right now, this is all absolutely perfect and correct. So this will go through once through each of them, and then what I'll do, I'll cut away to do an end summary. So this particular microphone system for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners, because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input on the side is not a microphone input, it's a line input. So unfortunately, what it won't do is pre-amplify dynamic microphones to any great degree, and it will not power ECMs and lavs and such. So this particular microphone system for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners, because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input on the side is not a microphone input, it's a line input. So unfortunately, what it won't do is pre-amplify dynamic microphones to any great degree, and it will not power ECMs and lavs and such. So this particular microphone system for the E1 may be very interesting to other E1 owners, because as an E1 owner, you'll know that this input on the side is not a microphone input, it's a line input. So unfortunately, what it won't do is pre-amplify dynamic microphones to any great degree, and it will not power ECMs and lavs and such. Okay, so hopefully that tutorial and the examples were good enough to help people. One, primarily to assist in how to download, install and have a basic use of the LoudMax plugin. But on top of that, hopefully it's kind of give people a little bit more of an insight into dynamics processing and maybe more specifically limiting. Now, it's probably also very true to say as well that that particular plugin isn't strictly just a limiter. It does a lot more than just straight limiting. But the thing with that, it actually helps people who don't necessarily have a background in audio to be able to utilize the limiting process and probably get to a very finished result a lot quicker than what you would have to do if you followed more traditional routes. And also on top of that as well, anybody who's got any audio experience will know that I've basically kind of skimmed across a lot of things there. But for the sake of this particular tutorial, you know, I couldn't really get bogged down with going into the wheres and what fors of dynamics processing. This really wasn't the video for that. So hopefully anyway, yeah, it's given people a bit of an insight and it's been useful. And I'll just reiterate the point again. If you're going to start using this plugin and it becomes part of your creative tool set, then please leave a donation on the website for the people who make this plugin, because without people like that putting all that hard work into making something amazingly good and useful, it kind of like, you know, people like us, where would we be without stuff like that? So seriously, leave a donation, because it just shows the appreciation that people like us have for those who actually do all the hard work. Also, if anybody found the editing system interesting that I was using there, it's called Edius by a company called Grass Valley. I will have links in the descriptions below where you can go and visit their website and learn more about that particular piece of software. Also, there's demos available for download for that software as well, so you can have a really good go at it. But the one thing that I will say about it, it is just simply the best non-linear editing system in the world. And once again, to all of my extended family of Edius sisters and brothers out there, hopefully this plugin is going to help you and your productions just that little bit more. And so with that, I think the last words that I've got to say now are thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.